A lot of people are already wondering if the 2020 presidential election was a legitimate election. And my opinion is that it was a legitimate election, right up until certain states decided to stop counting just hours before what was appearing to be a clear Trump victory. Why, in the most important election in modern times, which is expected to be a highly contested race in a divided nation, would you stop counting the ballots at such a crucial time? But I want to provide some of the evidence that to me proves that this election was the victim of some voting fraud. And then I want to propose what I think needs to happen from here. And I also want to make this clear right now that I don't necessarily believe Biden is directing this. I think it's more likely this is the result of individual, semi-centralized groups operating at the behest of the Democratic leadership. Now, none of this evidence is 100%. But it's about showing that there is legitimate reason to contest the results of the election right to the end. I want to prove that when I say the election involved fraud, it's not because I'm trying to cope with a Trump loss. We've got the evidence to cast reasonable doubt on it. This screenshot shows that there is a discrepancy between votes cast and voter registration in the state of Wisconsin. Now, I know what people are saying. These numbers are wrong, these numbers are out of date, same-day registration, etc. So I'll use the numbers I've been quoted on Twitter by people disproving this, which is 3,684,726 plus same-day registration registered voters, as of November the 1st. Even so, why did the turnout in Wisconsin go from 67.34% in 2016 to roughly 80% plus in 2020? Either way, more people voted than expected. My point here is more so about the doubt it creates than this being definite proof. Because these numbers are so tight, and there's such a high recorded turnout, it makes it a lot easier to either add or destroy ballots one way or another. When you have such a high turnout, above the historical average, taking it by 20,000 or less votes is way too close for comfort. And realistically, in a turnout of 3.2 plus million, it's theoretically not that hard to add or subtract a total of 100,000 ballots. And before the pause in reporting, it really was looking like a very nice Trump win the whole night. Then we have a pause and a huge Biden resurgence. Now, this isn't conclusive. Maybe it's just the state really does divide 50-50, and 80% of people really did turn out to vote this time. It is a high-stakes election. People are going to come out in numbers. So it's very interesting that Biden just managed to get across the line, but hey, maybe people in Wisconsin really did just rally to vote Democrat this time around. Let's move on. This second image is to me what proves that something is definitely suspicious enough to justify an investigation and create reasonable doubt in the legitimacy of this election. As you can see here, Trump was on 2,200,902 and Biden was on 1,992,356 in Michigan. So a 200,000 plus vote differential, with estimates placing as much as 90% of the vote as being reported. Definitely around the time you can start breaking out the champagne for Trump and having a party. Oh, no, never mind, because at 4 a.m. in the morning, all of a sudden, that gap gets narrowed to a 70,000 vote differential all at once. Like a single county's worth of votes came back and they were all for Biden. Not a single vote in 130,000 plus ballots for Trump. This brings the race close enough that the state goes from leaning heavily red to just scraping through for Biden, with about 130,000 vote lead at 99% reported. In other words, if not for these 4 a.m. ballots, this race would be neck and neck, too close to possibly call. With the 4 a.m. ballots, Biden has managed to build an insurmountable lead and win the state by more than 1%, hopefully avoiding a recount that might find any discrepancies. The final piece of evidence that for me confirms that something dodgy is happening is what I mentioned in the beginning. Why was counting stopped? It's not normal for counting to completely stop. It is true that the states don't have to have all ballots counted the same day. However, in an election of this magnitude, especially with so many states being contested by a tight margin and so much on the line, why would you stop counting ballots that night? Surely you push through the night to try and produce a clear victor, to give the American people a clear idea of who the victor is by the next morning, rather than suspend a dangerously divided country in motion, waiting news on the fate of their country's leadership. After all, it's only the most important election in the world, deciding the future leader of the free world. And yet in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, they stopped counting mail-in ballots before midnight. And in Arizona, Maricopa County, trending 62% Trump, as well as other areas, they were ordered to stop counting by Recorder Fontes before they got to any of the election day votes, in an area where Trump only needs to win by 58% to take back Arizona. Which begs the question, why? If they just counted and reported last night, we'd know if Arizona had stayed red or flipped blue. And if it stays red, that will decide the election. If Trump can take Arizona, it's a clear victory. So why? For the same reason Fox called Arizona for Biden early. Because the plan has always been to commit fraud if the eastern states started coming back heavily Trump. When the call to delay was made by Fontes, Trump was winning Virginia. It was clear Trump's support had come out in force, and it wasn't going to be the blowout Biden victory they'd been hoping for. And so the plan was set in motion. They knew Arizona and Pennsylvania were key states, so they pulled the plug there first, but it wouldn't be long before the reporting stopped coming in for Wisconsin and Michigan as well. At that time, Trump had a clear victory. He had convincing leads across the nation, and with a possible 800,000 votes in Arizona still to be counted, almost certainly breaking heavily Trump, there was an excellent chance Arizona would stay red. And so the delaying and smokescreens began while Democratic leadership scrambled to decide how much they needed and how much they could get away with. The printer started, and at 4 a.m., Wisconsin and Michigan suddenly flipped blue, and the following day, a 600,000 lead enjoyed by Trump in Pennsylvania has evaporated to only 200,000. Arizona and Nevada, two closely contested states, are still saying that the results won't be in until tomorrow. The only reason for such a delay is either total incompetence and a lack of understanding as to the consequences of this election, where every passing hour of uncertainty only drives for division and increases the tension more and more, or because you need time to do the numbers and ensure just enough ballot fraud to give Biden the edge in case you didn't do the maths right the first time around. If you swing it by too much, it'll look suspicious. Everyone knows that generally it is expected that mail-in ballots are going to break for Biden. But the real question is, why were so many mail-in ballots received on election day, and why are so many expected to be received over the next week that there's a significant delay in counting them? And here's the real scary part. Ballots received after November 3rd with an unclear postmark will be accepted in Nevada. With ballots having been sent to every voter in Nevada, that's a lot of potential ballots that weren't actually received by their recipient due to being changing or inaccurate addresses, combined with the potential for them to be stolen. A hostile third party could potentially use these to decide the election for the entire country, one way or another. The reason I suspect a hostile third party might lead towards giving the votes to Biden is because Democrats are the ones who are insisting there's nothing wrong with the mail-in voting system, and Republicans strongly oppose it. If you're intending to commit fraud, you don't usually try and get rid of the system you're intending to use. That'd be some real 4D chess. Here's what I think happened. Trump's support was so strong election night, they've needed even more time to commit fraud than they thought. And I think that's what's going to get them caught. And finally, the man who is right more times than he can even rub in, Razorfist, called this shit back at the start of September in a video entitled Mail-in Ballots Are BS, link in the description. For now, we see if Arizona or Nevada comes through and delivers the win. If not, protest the decision, demand the results be verified, and fight it in the courts. We have the evidence to show that fraud did play a part in this election. Now, we have but to determine two things. A, did it change the outcome of the election? And B, who was behind it? I'll probably do some more videos clarifying things from here on in, especially the media efforts to influence the election. This isn't over yet. Chatelet.